When I was young, I went to a house in town where the residents went all out and probably spent thousands of dollars getting the place perfect for Halloween. This place was insanely well done, and I mean really good, even compared to professional haunted houses. I believe the year was either 1999 or 2000, because I went dressed as a red-faced demon warrior. I remember being scared out of my mind the previous years, and I hoped my character would provide me with some courage. They blocked off the scene with a black tarp and had everything you could ever want to see at such a house. A psycho shower scene, a zombie crawling out of a toilet, ghouls and imps climbing the tree, blood, gore, strobes, fog, everything. I remember feeling terrified even with my double-staff weapon. Even though I was scared to death to walk through it, I always admired the workmanship, knowing the props were either very expensive or took great effort to make. To this day, I've never seen a better yard than that. As always, every year I saw the house owner sitting on the porch, reveling in the terror they brought to the neighborhood and handing out candy. So I nervously crossed the yard past flying banshees and impaled corpses. I noticed the main attraction at the end of the line. There, on what was probably the driveway, was the bottomless pit illusion. The glowing box chilled me, lit by a lone bulb like a furnace. I must have stared at it for a while when I suddenly heard a cough and a low, hushed voice to my right. I don't really remember what was said, but it was something like, "Hey, check this out," in a gruff tone. I looked over and first saw nothing but the wide gate to the side of the house. There was just a faint glow from the pit to illuminate the outlines of the fence. After adjusting my eyes, I noticed a figure standing completely still. I thought it was just another static prop. I was still looking for the voice, not realizing it had come from the figure. After a few moments, I heard the voice again. I realized it had come from the figure and began to approach. This was obviously a stupid idea, but compared to everything else happening, the figure seemed anything but imposing. So I cautiously stepped closer. Suddenly, the figure began to move, and I froze solid. The amber glow lit up its face just enough for me to make out its features. It was a scraggly, rough-looking man with a coarse gray beard and yellow teeth. His weathered clothes looked like they hadn't been cleaned in ages. He was smiling at me, though I had no idea why. But it unsettled me greatly. Under the hellish glow, it felt wrong. He was clearly not part of the show, and since I had already seen the owners, I knew he didn't belong on the property. I screamed and ran as fast as I could to the exit, never looking back. When I found my parents waiting outside, I told them about the man. One of the owners approached and asked if everything was all right. I said something like, I didn't like the old man by the gate. The owner looked at me and said, "What man?" I never went back there again. Several years later, right before I was about to leave for trick-or-treating on Halloween, I got into a fight with my mother. I told her I was going to pick up a friend and go out, but she insisted I had to be with an adult. I raged, thinking it would be embarrassing. After the argument, I ran to my room angry. But instead of obeying her, I made a plan. My younger brother and sister were going with my mom and her friend. I decided I would tell my mom I was sorry, stay home to pass out candy, and then sneak out. After they left, I got my costume ready. I went as a gangster, which was probably the worst choice I could have made. But I was too excited to notice. My mind went wild with the idea of being on my own. I even called my friend to cancel. Another mistake. I left the house with confidence. The first street went great. I got loads of candy. But then I noticed strange looks at me being alone. I turned down another street, almost done, when I realized I was being followed. The area was open, no trees, no other kids around. A trashy car was following a few feet behind me. My confidence vanished. 3 men were in the car, smoking and glaring right at me. My mother's warnings about creeps flashed in my head. My heart pounded. I reached the last house on the street and made a quick decision. I turned up the driveway. The house was abandoned, its windows boarded up, the yard filled with junk. Everyone knew it was abandoned. The car stopped in front, the men staring at me. I stood on the porch, hidden by bushes. One of the men got out, staring right at me through the branches. I gripped the rusty doorknob and stared back until he got back in the car and they sped away. As soon as they left, I ran as fast as I could, looking for someone familiar. I found a neighbor and walked behind them until I reached my street. My mom gave me weird looks when I returned, but I didn't care. I ran into the house and cried myself to sleep. I still live in the same neighborhood. Every time I pass the abandoned house, I thank it for saving my life. I don't know why those men didn't come after me. This year will be my 40th birthday, and even after 25 years, that memory hasn't faded. Another Halloween memory. I lost my virginity in a pumpkin patch, cliché as it sounds. It was in the bed of a pickup truck, parked just inside the only gate of the fenced patch. My date and I shared wine, talked awkwardly, and then got to business. My family had 2 border collies, and they wandered in barking. We laughed and threw scraps to them before continuing. Afterward, we sat on the tailgate, looking at the stars. My father returned home across the street, the dogs bounding toward him. As we dressed, we heard rustling behind us. In the moonlight, we saw a pumpkin begin to rise, not lifted, but as if it stood up on its own. Then 2 spindly legs emerged. I thought it was a trick at first, but then I saw it clearly. A skeletal figure with red eyes glowing. We screamed and bolted for my house. My nose was bleeding, and so was my date's. I yelled for my dad to get his gun. He stormed toward the patch, but the dogs refused to follow. When he came back, he was furious. The tailgate was broken off, the fence destroyed. The police came the next day but found nothing. They thought it was vandals, but I never believed that. The dogs hadn't made a sound before, and the gate made noise when touched. The shape I saw wasn't human, and no costume could explain the damage or the nosebleeds. My father went to his grave believing vandals did it. My date and I knew better. I rarely tell this story because people joke about the Great Pumpkin. But I've heard of creatures that can take forms to blend in. I can't think of anything else it could have been. On Halloween of 2009, I was 8 years old. My sister was 5. We went out trick-or-treating with friends, supervised by an older brother. The night went fine, and my dad came to pick us up, but he looked anxious. At home, my mother hugged us, but my dad told us we could never go trick-or-treating again. I threw a tantrum, but my sister didn't care. Years later, my brother was born. And when he turned 6, my father finally relented to take him and my sister. By then, I no longer cared about Halloween. I asked my mom why. She told me that in 2009, a boy from our neighborhood had gone trick-or-treating and got separated from his friends. He knocked on the wrong door. His body was found inside, mutilated. An old man was arrested, but Halloween was never the same. The house is still abandoned. People call it the haunted house now. Halloween is ruined for me. Another year, I went out alone for what would be my last Halloween. My dad painted my face like a zombie, and I carried a pillowcase for candy. I convinced my parents to let me go on my own. After a while, a black van pulled up. A man in a mask got out, carrying a machete. He said, "Want some candy?" and dropped small sacks into my bag. He snickered and left. I thought nothing of it until I realized later the same van was following me. Near the end of the night, the van was right behind me, the masked man at the wheel. I ran into the woods, reached my house, and hid inside. The next morning, my parents found the sacks. They weren't candy. They were filled with prescription drugs, sleeping pills. His plan had been to wait until I collapsed, then take me. The police never found him. To this day, I don't know if that machete was real. I didn't know. I need care.